Nightmare Alley. Horror movie, right? Wrong. It's a movie by Guillermo del Toro. You know, the guy who made that bestiality movie that did really well, Shape of Water. Welcome to Sir Atkinson's Film Club with me, Sir Atkinson, where this week we're going to be talking about Nightmare Alley. I went to watch it the other night at my local cinema. I did fancy it because Guillermo del Toro shoots beautiful movies. The subject matter seemed different, so let's get into it. This movie's got a load of big names starring in it. Bradley Cooper, Toni Collette, Cate Blanchett, Richard Jenkins, Willem Dafoe, Ron Perlman, Lara Jean Chorotesteki. Nightmare Alley is a story in the 1930s to 1940s in America. We pick up the story with Bradley Cooper's character leaving what looks like the family home, setting it on fire, and looks like he's got only the bag on his back. The character bumps into the local travelling fair or circus or carnival or however you want to talk about it. And it's exactly what you'd expect from the 1930s. You know, bearded ladies, freak shows, all weird and wonderful things. Everything from people trying to grift to the light entertainment to some mentalism. And all these parts are covered in this movie, which is quite interesting as the movie develops, and it's got lots of undertones and also a lot of commentary on the social aspects of life here, then, now. And I think it actually, and probably its strongest point is not actually the storyline itself, but how it speaks to the modern day class system in not just America, but the wider Western world. For me, this movie is two stories being told. It's a story of what appears at first to be grifters at the lowest levels of society, trying to make a buck at every opportunity they can. As the movie progresses, we actually see that that's not the sole responsibility of the lower class. We see that there's grifters in every aspect of society, from the people working on the carnival, trying to trick people into mind reading or clairvoyance, to actual therapists, doctors, and then capitalists of the era, which I actually think it's quite beautifully done, and it's a testament to how well the movie's been made. The other story within this movie is how immorality is sort of sanitized depending on the class system. So what I mean by that, and I don't want to give too much away, is in the lower classes, if someone acts immoral, it's almost seen as disgusting, right? Oh, look at them, we would never do that. But as you step up that higher in class, it's almost as if they don't see themselves in the same way. There's a certain amount of honesty from the people within the carnival that they know what they're doing is wrong. And as you will see throughout this movie, in which Del Toro plays perfectly, the people in the higher aspects of society almost feel above the law and above morality in general. And I think that's really something worth talking about and something worth seeing. Before we start talking about what I think was good about this, I was hoping to ask you a little favour. If you just hit that like button, subscribe if you like the content. I'm trying to grow this channel. This is a new movie-based film club channel. I just wanted to talk all things movies and hopefully grow and get better as I go. This is early days for me and I'm enjoying it, but obviously I can't get anywhere without anyone watching it, and my dream is to have this channel as a more permanent fixture in my life, so this would really help that. The good. This story is set in the 1930s, 1940s. It starts off following the fair and circus, which is an underlying theme throughout this. It's a niche industry within America, which, you know, it's got a rich part of history. It's some sort of Americana, if you like, which doesn't get spoken about much. And actually, we don't get told about a lot, partly because of the shame of the past, but also because it's such a niche industry. Everyone on this plays their acting instruments to perfection. From Bradley Cooper, who at first is the reserved guy who picks up a skill set along the way from his new friends within the fair, and eventually becomes a guy who has so much aspiration that he's willing to step on whoever it takes, actually, to get where he wants in life. And ultimately, it's about money. Cate Blanchett is worth a notable mention alone for her performance. Everything she does is great, right? I can't remember the last time she did anything that wasn't great. She's again great in this movie. She meets Bradley Cooper's character as he's climbing society. He's still seen to her as someone who's out on the grift, but as it turns out, she's not a million miles away with a moral compass. The sets on this thing are great, and the shooting must have been quite fun, actually, because it must have been like being part of a travelling circus. If you've been on set like me or worked years in the industry, it sort of feels like you feel like carny folk at times, especially if you're doing night shoots or location shoots. Not that I envy this crew's night shooting, by the way. That's never the most fun part for me. And I know it was shot in Toronto, which obviously there'll be some tax exemptions and the reason it's shot there, but that's not going to be warm night shooting, and them fields look muddy, so fair play to the crew on that one. Throughout this movie, good morals are rare, and I'm going to keep bringing up morals because for me, this story is about morality. It's not that it shines on morality in the 1940s and looks down on them, because, you know, that is the time that we're looking at, and we can't really judge what was entertainment then. If the whole world says something's entertainment, then you're going to consider it entertainment, right? The movie shines a light on morality in the 1940s via the medium of this sort of grifting, if you like. I'm looking for the right way to describe it, because some of it's criminal, some of it's entertainment. To what degree do we consider all forms of therapy genuine? And these are all questions they're asking in this movie. It doesn't just shine a light on this, but it looks at the human condition, which I actually think is the richness in the movie. Money's a centerpiece of all the characters' incentives in some way. From Bradley Cooper doing whatever it takes and will step on anyone to get to the next level, to the capitalists at the top of society who don't even see all humans at the same level, and everything in between. The immorality in which I mentioned becomes much more apparent the higher we go in society, yet much more accepted, which is, it's true now and it's true then, and that's why I like this movie, because it is relevant. There's a lot of relevance now, and probably always was in every type of society. Those with power get to flaunt immorality, and those at the bottom with the least power, often forced into moral decisions, get the biggest repercussions. I actually think this could be a little bit of a nod to the modern entertainment industry. I mean, no one could have been a fan of entertainment in the last 5 or 6 years and not heard the news, from everything from Me Too to all the scandals. And I think that this movie, either intentionally or unintentionally, it's a little nod towards this. I feel it could be saying, yeah, Hollywood's high in society, we're above all this, right? But actually, we're no different to Smoke and Mirrors and The Geek Show, which I don't want to spoil for you, but go watch this movie alone to find out what a geek show is, how they recruit the people within the geek show, and how disgusted you feel when you find out why and how they did it. One of my favourite parts of this movie was Richard Jenkins. Now, I'm a big fan of Richard Jenkins, to the point of where I'll check out his IMDb to see what he's working on to watch his next movie. Everything he touches, and he's got so much range. He's one of them Hollywood actors who's always in work, always does good work, but is still somewhat of an unknown name. He doesn't fail to deliver again on this movie. In this, he's tyrant of sorts who've got the soul of a demon, all dressed up in super wealthy capitalist. The bad. Now, one of the bad things I think in this story's based on a novel, so they've obviously took the name from the novel Nightmare Alley. Now, I think that this will probably play against people turning up to it. If you're not a horror person, you read Nightmare Alley without looking too much into it, you've already skipped over. Now, I know that the studios will be aware of this, but I just think I would probably have chose a different name to launch as a movie, but it doesn't take anything away from the way it's shot or how I viewed the movie as a fan, buying a ticket as a punter, but I just think it seemed a little bit off. And in fact, until I looked a little bit further into it a few months ago, but when it was coming out, it would have been something that I probably would have only glanced at, Nightmare Alley, and waited for someone else to tell me about it rather than me looking a bit deeper. Some of the problems I had with the movie are actually not the macro message, but actually the storyline itself. So it is a movie with twists, so I want to be careful and not break any spoilers for you guys. But one of the things I will say is it starts off strong, you're grabbed, but as time goes on, you're losing empathy for the characters. That's partly because of how well it's written and they're bad people, but a good movie can keep you interested with bad people. I think at times this starts to lose me around 60% of the way through the movie, and if it wasn't for the sets and the macro message of morality, I think I would have probably had worse things to say about it. It's acted well. I just feel that third act is a little bit, I don't know, I think it could have been done better. The twist also I saw coming. Now, I'm someone who watches loads of movies and prides myself early in a movie for getting the twist, and this was one of them. 50% of the way through, I pretty much could have wrote the ending, probably not as well as the guys who have wrote this movie, but I knew what was going to happen, and that's not great, especially when you're watching a movie for 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours is a big commitment for anyone, especially if, you know, it's downtown. We all work full-time jobs, or most people work full-time jobs, so 2.5 hours when you've got a family, newborn baby like myself, or whatever you've got going on. I feel like this movie could have probably been tied up in an hour and a half, an hour and 45, and it probably would have added to it. I don't know which bits you would have cut, but there's certainly some bits that they could have done. So the verdict. I think this is a well-made movie, and I certainly would have liked to have walked around them sets as they were getting made. I love filmmaking, and I love being part of it. One of my favourite things, despite me not being in production design or set design or anything like that, is when the sets are coming together. I love walking through set and having a little look at it all come apart, and you actually feel the magic. And then when you get the script, you've read the script, you start putting yourself in places directors, and I like talking to, the camera guys or the cinematographer, just how they see it. And this movie, I can imagine it coming in together, and you can almost see the work the crews have put in. Certainly the night shoots, as I mentioned, or what looks like night shoots, it will have been quite a lot of studio work for sure. Working in the industry, I appreciate that part of it. The more you get to learn about filmmaking, I think you start appreciating different parts of the movie. The movie is good in parts, and it's certainly different to anything else that I've seen for a while, which is one of the reasons I would say go and see it. I don't think it's a rush out and see. I think if you haven't already got the itch to go and see this, you could wait this out and it'll be streaming soon enough. I don't think you lose too much by not being at the cinema, to be honest. It's a movie that could equally be enjoyed from your sofa. For 2.5 hours, I know a couple of times in it, I wouldn't have minded to stop for a cup of tea and some crisps or whatever. It is 2.5 hours long, which is a lot more comfortable, and you can stop or you could watch it over a couple of nights. I actually think they could have turned this into a mini-series, spread it out a little bit more. There's enough characters and enough places to go with that. I know that takes something away from the filmmaking, but as the world's gone this way with streaming channels and ultimately what HBO started, we can develop characters more, and I think this was one of them movies that could have been developed that way. Nevertheless, this is a good movie. It's acted great. Story's fun, and it shines a light on things that I didn't know anything about, which is part of the fun of going to the cinemas. And it certainly made me start Googling stuff about that time, about fairs, about circuses, about the ill treatment of people, what was seen as moral, what wasn't. So I think you certainly get something, and there's value in the movie. I just think it's not going to be movie of the year, and in fact I think the things people talk about the most aren't going to be the story or the acting, and it's going to be more of standout events that happened within the movie. Parts you could cut out and watch as standalone pieces because the acting's good. It's a freak show of sorts anyway, because you're watching stuff that we're watching it with the eyes of the modern world, looking at how they watch the world, but ultimately you're watching the same thing. You're watching a guy bite the head off a chicken, you're watching electric beam run for a woman. All these things that happen, we're watching with the same delight, and the human condition, if you like it or not, has a want for that stuff, and this delivers on that part. And I feel like the conversations of this movie will steer much more toward things that happened in it rather than the movie as a whole, and that somewhat takes away. So I'll be interested to see where Guillermo del Toro goes next, because what I really like about his filmmaking is you can't predict what he's going to make next, or he's going to write or produce, etc. And I love his directing style. He seems to drag your eyes to the screen. Thanks for watching. Again, this is my second episode, and hopefully getting slightly better as the days go on. If you liked what you're watching, please hit the like button and subscribe, and hopefully you'll see me again soon. I think I'll try something a little bit different next week. I'm planning on a hypothetical video talking about who the next James Bond could be, who I want to see, who the people's favourite is, and the bookies say going to get the job. Anyway, see you next time, and like and subscribe. Thanks guys, much love.